for coming to the virtual last meeting of the EEAC for this school year. We're going to take the time to review the annual report, the first draft of the annual report that I emailed out to everybody a few days ago. Even though hopefully people had a chance to read through it, if you haven't, we will give some time tonight for people to read through it and then provide comments and whatnot. So we will have some time for that, and then we will get into some lessons learned as well. So we'll spend some of that time where people can provide their feedback on what they thought went well this year, so some of the pluses. And I had some examples in the annual report for that, as well as some deltas, what types of things you would like to see differently in future years. And then after that, I'll talk about plans for the next school year, as far as trying to figure out who will be continuing on the committee, and just giving a rough idea of what it's going to be like for the next school year. So with that being said, it is going to be a work session. So for the most part, we're going to be doing kind of like head down work for the first 35 to 40-ish minutes. Giving people a chance to read through the report. But if you have questions or comments that you want to bring forth to everybody as you're going through, feel free to do so. It's the most helpful for me if you provide comments within the document. So if you see something that you would like to be fixed or added, just add a comment to the document, and then I can add that at a later date. But after the period of review where people are reviewing and providing their comments, we will have about 10 or 15 minutes for, I'll go through some of the comments if I have questions, and people can verbally make any observations or comments at that point as well. I guess I just want to make sure I did provide the link, but just to make sure that everybody is on the same page, if you go to the EEAC shared drive, and go to the annual report subcommittee folder. Within that one, you will see the first draft of the annual report. So that's the document that we will be working off of. I am also specific. I did call it out in comments in the annual report for the two cabinet roundtables, or the one cabinet roundtable that I wasn't sitting at, which would be academics and HR. For those of you who were at that cabinet roundtable, if you could provide a little bit extra focus on that one to make sure that what I typed up and what is in there is accurate to what you recall, as well as providing some recommendations. Again, since I wasn't there, I just want to make sure that what's represented in the report is accurate. So I'd appreciate some extra attention and detail there. And then again, like I said in the email that I sent out a few days ago, I am looking for some additional recommendations in each section. I populated one recommendation in each section. Ideally, we would like to have 2 or 3. We don't want to inundate the district of too many, so I think 2 or 3 recommendations per section is good. So yeah, I'm looking for people to provide feedback and additional recommendations. So before we get started, does anybody have any questions on what we're going to do right now? All right. If not, I plan, let's go until 7:15 for people to read through, add comments. Again, feel free to speak up. Feel free to come off mute and ask any questions or make any comments as you're reading through it. And I'll do a check-in a little bit before then. I'll do a check-in at 7:10 just to see if people are done already. And then at 7:15, we'll have a session where people can, verbally ask questions or have comments, and where I can ask clarifying questions on anything that people put in there. Sound good? Cool. All right. So let's get at it, and I'll check in later. Yes, thank you, Lisa. I saw some of your comments that you added earlier today. So I think some people were going through earlier, and I appreciate that. So no worries there. Yes, any comments I greatly appreciate. And if you've already provided some, again, thank you. Something else that I will do, I will monitor comments as people are adding them in. And if it's like a simple comment, like change this word or whatever, I'll go ahead and do it live and then resolve those comments. So if there's stuff that people put in there that's easy for me to take care of right away, I will go ahead and do that. All right, just doing a quick check-in. Don't want to startle people too much after about more than half an hour of quietness. So I do want to give it a couple more minutes. It looks like people are still reviewing. I'm still seeing comments pop up in the Cabinet Roundtable section. So I will give it at least 4 more minutes before we start going through. I've been providing some comments, replying to people's comments. So feel free to go back and look at those. But yeah, we'll give it a few more minutes before we come back together as a group. All right, we're at 7:15. So I think if you're in the middle of still reviewing, feel free to continue. I'm gonna do my best to start going through some of the comments and partially respond to them. With that being said, or I guess before we do that, does anybody have anything just that they want to ask first, or any observations or things that they want to bring up before I start going through some of the comments? All right. Let's see here. So I'm going to start going through some of them. I guess the first thing that I'll say that I'll try to address widely is, I appreciate all the recommendations from Lisa and others, and I'm going to do my best to include them somehow. In some instances, I think it's a matter of condensing them into one recommendation and maybe using examples. So like within one of the existing recommendations or one of the recommendations, based on what some people have provided comments on, those could be used as here's an example of how to implement this recommendation. So I'll try and do that as much as possible. I do think some of the recommendations, and I might call out a couple here and there, some of the recommendations can probably be addressed between like Henry and I directly with Dr. McCall and Zinnia, Dr. Un, and where we can then try and address those and then bring information and stuff back to the committee. So that can definitely happen in some of these situations as well. Let's see. So one example. So for the each example, so like considering to create a reporting template. So that is something that we have done. I don't know that simple is the correct terminology, because the each plans, I'll just say that they're not exactly simple, but I think it is important that we follow a template, and that is what we have been doing. And so I can definitely try and incorporate some of those recommendations into the existing recommendation, similar to Dr. McCall, what you provided, having site council present some of their each plans or, at their site council meetings. Lisa, or Dr. McCall, you got your hand.
Yeah, so with the template of the SIP, it
Mm-hmm.
for those, from our perspective, we always look to see if we can make that a little bit simpler. So the team, our instructional core, they're always looking at ways to do that. But we
Mm-hmm.
appreciate the feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as far as the site council, Oregon rule is that every school is supposed to have one, and um, that's something to look into if we don't. But
Mm-hmm.
the reason I mentioned that is because you have multiple constituents' perspective as a site council, community
Mm-hmm.
member, some families, and as well as a diversity of staff.
Yep. Agreed. I am on 12th High School Site Council, and yeah, that would have been awesome to have seen that and provided feedback. So I agree with that, and I will definitely add that to the report as an example of what to do with the EASH plans. I think one of the recommendations from Lisa about including more student voice in EASH plans, I don't remember. I don't know if it was an observation or a comment from this year, but I know it was from last year. There might have been one this year. Where schools, they do say they have like listening sessions, like family listening sessions and whatnot, and that's cool. And yes, there have been recommendations of like, hey, it'd be nice to see some of that feedback, right? Can you include some of that? Like, you're having these listening sessions, can you please include some of that feedback in the reports? So I believe that recommendation has been made, at least in one of our comments, but I can see if I can fit that in. In the SRO program comments, let's see here. So again, I tried to respond to some of these. I do like recommendation number 2 about the SROs partnering with family partnership advocates. And I absolutely agree too, kind of like my concern that I brought up, it needs to be done in the right way, right? So it's a very sensitive situation, but I do think that that is a good idea, and I would like to add that to the report. And yes, making sure that we have access to the scope of work document of the SROs. I know that document has been out there to review in the past for the committee, like the actual SRO oversight committee before it came to us, had the opportunity to review it. So that's an example of something that Henry and I can talk to Zinnia and Dr. McCall about. We can definitely bring that document into the committee to review next year. And Marissa, yeah, increasing the availability of training in the schools to help prepare staff to provide accommodations during security and safety incidents. I don't know how much the SROs are involved with some of that stuff. So for example, like fire drills and whatnot, I don't think, Dr. McCall, I don't know if you know, I don't think the SROs are involved with like fire drills. What about lockout drills? Are they involved with like
It depends, yes, but some of those when they do those scenarios, they
Mhm.
can be involved. But Not with the fire drills, typically not.
Right, and probably especially not at the grade school level,
Exactly.
which is why I think where some of these concerns mostly pop up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is something, Marissa, like, feel free to speak up, Marissa, if I'm not directly addressing the concern, because unfortunately we weren't able to have Jarvis with us on the SRO meeting, so we couldn't like ask questions directly. But I can definitely bring this up with Xenia and whatnot, because she works closely with Jarvis. But Marissa, is there anything else that you want to add to that as far as any specifics or details?
No, I think it was just I was looking back at the notes and I remember having this conversation and it's been kind of the theme that we've brought up throughout the year. And I do remember, just talking with the SROs about what they do or as far as how the lockdowns or the drills or not the drills, but the lockdowns go. And so I just wanted to make sure that that was added in there as something that they could focus on.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Again, that's something that I can, because the SROs are going to be more involved at the high school and middle school level. But as far as like then the lockdown drills at the elementary, I'm actually not sure how that process works and who's involved with that. So I think that would be something that we need to get more information from Xenia and potentially Jarvis on. But I do agree that because the information provided by Jarvis, again, he was only able to provide the written statement, had some information, but there was still lacked a little bit of detail as far as like how teachers are really made aware of accommodations that some students may need and how that's discovered. Right. So going on then into the bias incident and hate speech. Oh, and anybody, please feel free to stop me. Right, I'm going on my talking thing, so please feel free to speak up and stop me if you have something to say. So bias incident and hate speech section, as well as student acts of aggression and violence. That's a really long title section. That was hard to fit in. I actually had to finagle the was the part of the beginning, the table. I had to actually add an extra enter in there because it wasn't fitting. Yeah, I can. Some of my recommendations, well, most of my recommendations were like my first thoughts, my first words. So I appreciate any rewording to make some of the recommendations more clear. So I can definitely reword some of the recommendations. Yeah, as far as giving staff more bias training, as well as more clarification on discipline referral definitions. Dr. McCall, I don't know if you can speak to that, because I mean, staff does get bias training, is my understanding. Like everybody in the district gets bias training. So I'm just not sure.
I mean, it could be more. I mean,
Sure.
so the challenge is it depends on which staff, right? If it's
Right.
administrators and leaders, we have monthly meetings where we can incorporate more of that. But if it's for staff, it is utilizing the time that they have within their staff meetings to give them more training, which is always a good thing, I'm going to say. But
Sure.
I like that it's in there as a reminder, because if it's not happening consistently across the board, then we can see how we're not able to provide opportunities to refine and get better.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's an annual thing, but I like that it's in there so that it's a reminder for
Yeah.
us.
I wonder if we can add some specificity, like
Right.
link the training to the actual EASH or not EASH, what's it called? Yeah, EASH or the
Yeah, the
separate,
EASH plan.
in other words, yeah, the plan. So if in school A, certain things are happening, then the training should respond to that, right? But in school B, if that same thing is not happening, then they don't need that training. Then just
So
be
specific training tailored to the needs of individual schools. Is that what you're saying?
yes, but I think we have to define what those needs are, because if we
Yeah,
let them define it, then it just
yeah.
is what is easy.
Yeah.
Or some outside source, not this group necessarily, but we have the data and it's telling us
Mhm.
that certain things are happening.
I'd like to respond to that.
Yeah.
I noticed the school that I work at, Deer Creek, was mentioned as one that didn't have as many reports. I would suggest that perhaps it's the change in our leadership and how they do the reporting, because just having witnessed what was there in the past and what was there this year, I didn't notice as many. I can't imagine that it's truly gone down that much.
Mhm.
So I actually added a bullet, and I wasn't in the right place to put it, but I added the bullet point of saying calibration of those reporting incidents, including what makes a reportable incident, should be happening for assistants and principals and assistant principals, along with anyone else who might be making that, because I'm not confident that the data for all schools is actually what's happening there. That's my 2 cents on that.
Right. And so I one comment that I have on that, like I don't recall, were you at the cabinet roundtable, Barb? I think you weren't able to
No.
be at that one. Yeah. But so I was at the culture and climate roundtable, and this was similar to a comment that we made last year, recommendation that we made last year regarding inconsistency in reporting. And so they are addressing it, and how am I trying to word this? They are implementing something to address it, where they are doing calibration sessions right now. But the calibration sessions are with principals, assistant principals, and deans and whatnot. They're not at the teacher level, was my understanding. So that's something that a recommendation that I would definitely want to have. Something that you just commented on that I also think is important too is like, just not aha to me, recalling back on that presentation, is that those calibration sessions appear to be more focused on what was reported, not lack of reporting.
Okay.
So that's a good call out. So if Deer Creek is under-reporting, potentially, I'm not saying they are, but if they're potentially under-reporting, I think that's another opportunity for calibration.
And I'm saying that I have overheard conversations that I think should be considered that, and I've heard more than one.
Okay, yeah.
I have overheard both my principal and my vice principal
Mhm.
having those conversations with students. So I was surprised to see there was only one.
Gotcha.
There should
Okay.
have been more.
Yeah, because there's been an increase in the last couple of years of report, but also encouraging staff to report. But absence of that calibration, we get the unintended consequence of subjective types of reporting, which the presentation showed on culture and climate, that there's overrepresentation in the more subjective offenses as opposed to the more concrete incidents like fighting. The
Yeah.
ones disrespect and defiance gets to be over-reported, and calibration can address that.
Yeah. I agree. Thank you.
Yeah, so I will definitely try and fit that in, Barb, either in this section or culture and climate. I will definitely try to fit that in because, again, it's something that I know that they are doing. But again, just continue to do it, but just doing it, in a
Yeah.
slightly different
When
way.
I see they are doing it and it's
Mhm.
not being reported.
Got it. Yeah, and Diane made a comment in in the thread about that some of the training, like the bias training and that type of stuff, needs to be around calibration, right? Like how are they calibrating? How are they doing that?
And it just goes to whoever was that you, Lisa, that wrote a comment about the training with the deans and not with staff, because staff are there the front lines for the student. And so even though it was brought out on the round table that they have like the 3 times a year, or at least twice, that PBIS training with the deans and the APs and also the school teams, like their PBIS team, they come together. But then how do they then go back and provide that training to the staff?
Yes, exactly. I'm just trying to figure out then where and how I'm going to put that in here. I think I have enough based on my notes and Lisa's notes and the discussion to add that as a recommendation in this particular section. Because again, that part of the challenge too is like what section does it go in? I do think this section is appropriate because it was addressed also at the cabinet roundtable. But since we are talking about, again, the reporting aspect of it, I do think it's important to go in this section. So I will work on building that out. All right, on to the cabinet roundtable section. I think this is one of those examples of where a couple of the recommendations, like the first recommendation, Lisa, or not the first one, the second recommendation of consider developing a department-specific equity dashboard that could be updated quarterly. I like that idea. I think that's something that I would want to, that Henry and I could bring up with Zinnia first to see about the feasibility of something like that. I definitely think that's something that could be considered because, again, just the sharing of information and having that information more readily available for the committee to review and whatnot, I think would be super helpful. And so I guess I'll just process-wise, just to clarify, when I try and incorporate all this feedback and whatnot, I'm going to copy the document with the comments such that I have the version here with all the comments, and it will stay with all the comments so that I can always go back. We can always go back and look on the comments, so that I'll create a copy where I will work on incorporating everything. Let's see. The next one would be academics. Yes, and I appreciate all the extra comments and examples on the TWE program and how examples on how to, because again, my recommendation, what I put in there was like, what can be done to increase the sense of community with our and sense of belonging with our TWE students. So thank you, Nina and Italy, for providing examples. I will put those examples in the recommendation as these are examples of what can be done to help increase that sense of belonging. Diversification of workforce. This one was my recollection. Again, I wasn't at this cabinet roundtable breakout. I was at prior years, and historically, they seem to be doing pretty well in terms of like meeting their numbers and their goals and whatnot. So recommendations historically have been about, hey, how can you leverage your strengths and what you're doing well? Some of the comments appear to be similar to that. Let's see, what was? Oh, that's right. Thank you, Diane, for pointing out one of the comments in the actual SWOT table. I'm reading your reply to me. So do you recall, Diane, were you at that breakout table for HR?
No, and so I provide an alternative because my issue isn't whether or not that's wrong. It's the way the word diverse is being used.
Right.
Is usually to indicate anyone who's not a member of the majority culture. And so individuals aren't diverse, right? It's a group of people.
Right.
I'm not diverse, but because I'm in a group with different races, we are a diverse group.
Understand.
And so maybe high turnover of staff that represent non-majority culture, maybe just something like that.
Got it. Cool. And you provided that example in your comment. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Sorry, Jacob, I didn't follow directions, and so the last two bullets there are actually ones that I added.
Okay, no worries. I will, like, I have a pretty decent memory. I should be able to I should be able to tell, because like I've only put one recommendation. I only put one bullet in all of them except for culture or the communications one. That one I put two. So I should be able to figure that out, and that is fine. I'll work through it. Like I said, ideally I want to provide just 2 or 3, because as you all know, if you give somebody 5 things to work on, that's you know, you're not setting them up for success. So I'm going to try and limit us to 3 recommendations per section. So if something doesn't make it that you put in here, you know, I apologize. It's not because I'm like, oh, well, that was bad. It's not that it was a bad recommendation. It's just I'm trying to consolidate as much as possible. And again, if I can consolidate multiple recommendations into one, I'll try and do that too. All right, culture and climate. Yes, so this is where I provided that comment. I was trying to remember about, again, those calibration sessions that we were just talking about a little bit ago, right? Mentioning that teachers need to be included in these. So again, I will work through all of these comments where it makes the most sense to put that recommendation. I will place it, right? So that we can fit 2 or 3 recommendations into each section. So if I need to move that from here to the student acts of aggression, violence, and the bias and hate speech section, I can do that. But that is that one. And Dr. McCall, this is where you added that additional, I think you touched on utilizing those staff meetings and whatnot to engage staff in that calibration process. I do think that's
Yeah, I mean, if
example of a
we
recommendation.
know up front, there are so many staff meetings due to that administrators can use. But if there's some type of agreement that they utilize at least some of their staff meeting, of course, over the year to do that, I think we can meet a goal like that. But it's a good recommendation, and we can see where it goes.
Yep. All right, and then communications and community relations. Most of the main recommendation here, which people made comments previously as far as recommendations, like having greater partnership between departments and whatnot. I think this is an example where communications and community relations can help a lot of those other departments, with especially SROs and HR with getting stuff out to the public. So trying to include that recommendation here. All right, and then yeah, we did decide to keep the policy subcommittee section in here. I don't plan on including any direct recommendations here since the subcommittee didn't meet. But with that being said, Lisa, I do like the idea of having a calendar or a checklist of policies that should be reviewed on a regular basis. Dr. McCall, do you know, like, if the board does that already? Like, or is there like a certain review schedule for existing policy, or is it just as needed? You're on mute. You're on mute, Dr. McCall.
Sorry about that. Hold on. It is as needed, stemming from the HR lens. I'm on the policy committee, so and we have at least 2 board members that are on the policy committee. So through this recommendation, that is something they can bring back to the policy committee to review.
Okay. All right. Nina, what are your thoughts? Like, do you want to, even though the subcommittee didn't meet, do you still want to put a couple of recommendations in here?
Well, just hearing what Dr. McCall said about their committee meeting, is there an opportunity for someone on our committee to be a part of that? If I was still leading this policy subcommittee, is there a way in which I would be able to be a part of the meetings with the board? I feel like that would be educational, but
That's a good question. So I can, if we make a note, I can bring that up to HR and see. So again, I would pose it as a recommendation if there's if it's allowable, and we'll see. But thanks for thinking about that.
Yeah, I can't remember. Like, I think that idea was floated at some point in the past, but I don't think it was actually formally recommended in the report. I'll have to go back and look at last year's report. I don't recall off the top of my head if we formally recommended that or not. But
yeah,
I do
and
remember talking about it.
Yeah, and even if it's not allowable, maybe if there's a way to get meeting minutes or a summary of what was discussed to inform whoever leads the policy subcommittee for EEAC, I think that would be beneficial for this role.
Are there parents on the policy committee?
I don't think so. Dr. McCall, isn't it just district staff?
Yes, just this.
Yeah.
Because the board members are the ones that make policy, so that's why you have the board representation on there along with HR. But it's actually the board that is making policy and or adjusting policy.
Yeah, and then for new policy, like what they did with the student acts of aggression and violence, like they will solicit community feedback. They will go out there and they will get it. But as far as like making updates and whatnot, yeah, to my knowledge, there really isn't any opportunity for community feedback on that. So this, our committee would theoretically be that opportunity, right? If we could be at the table for those discussions. All right. I want to make sure that we get done in time tonight. Again, I will do my absolute best to incorporate comments and feedback. There is a lot here, but I will do my best. Again, I apologize if the final version, something is missing that you put in here that you really wanted to show up. I apologize in advance. I'm not doing that intentionally. I want to do my best to ensure that the committee's voice is heard, that everybody's voice is heard. I just want to make sure that we narrow things down to 3 recommendations max per section. And so that's what I'm going to try and do with all the feedback that's been provided tonight. With that being said, before we go into the lessons learned, does anybody have any comments or questions or concerns about the recommendations or the annual report in general? No? All right. Well, then we will spend the next... We don't have to spend too much on this section. I see that there are some comments in here already. Like I said, I just want to be able to call out for the board and just people in general, like, number one, the pluses. It's another way of also just celebrating wins, right? Like, hey, let's recall the things that went well, right? What did we like? And just celebrating that, as well as what we would like to potentially do differently in the upcoming years. I provided some examples. I can add a little bit of extra wording here. And I see people have provided some more, and I appreciate that. I don't know who put it in, but I like the idea of a retreat before the year starts. I think potentially that could also be an opportunity to not just get to know each other, but one of the challenges, I think, most of us would agree, for those that were, when you first came onto the committee, is the lingo and getting up to speed, the training. That's kind of hard, right? And so being able to use that retreat kind of as a training to an introduction to the committee, I think would also be helpful. So yes, like you said, Lisa, a more formal onboarding process. I agree. And that is something that I am going to try and solve. Some sort of documentation would be helpful. I agree with that too. Sorry, I'm reading through the comments. These were added a little bit later, so I did not have to have a chance to look through them. Gotcha. Yeah, Diane, the roundtable and having them on 2 different days. I like that idea. The challenge, though, is how do we fit it in? Again, we went from 10 meetings last year to 9 meetings this year because 10 was a lot. Like it's just one more than we did this year, but it is hard to fit in that extra meeting. I'm just saying, and so that could be a challenge, Diane, to have an extra meeting for the cabinet roundtable.
I'm not sure we need an extra meeting as much as we need to consolidate some of the other things that we talk about and maybe
Sure.
manage time differently.
Right. Yeah, that's another challenge too that I'm open for recommendations too. I mean, we do a lot of review, right? And we haven't tested it out. You know, maybe next year we could test out doing some of that document review asynchronously, right? If people can commit to like, okay, cool, I'll spend an hour, you know, one evening in the week when it works best for me to, you know, review these documents, add my comments to, you know, the documents that we gather feedback on. We could try that such that we would then have more actual meeting time. So what are people's thoughts on that? I mean, because it's not just me. I want to make sure that would be something that would work for people in the committee and that you would be okay with doing your own documentation review at your own time.
I think it would depend on a lot of different things, not a lot, but a few different things. I find it incredibly difficult to keep up with my TTSD email.
Okay.
And so like I didn't even see this until really late. And I don't know, it's probably a security thing that can't be changed, but I really wish I could use my email and not have to check one more email. Like if it just came to the one that I normally use, then I could be up on things. But I can't do a thorough, you know, review if I don't find out in time. So it's not your fault. I think it's a TTSD thing. Also, I find the Ish review incredibly frustrating. We have spent so much time going through those documents, and I feel like nothing has changed. I'm sure something has, but it doesn't feel like anything has changed. And so to me, that's a waste of time. If we're going to use all that energy and brain power to go through and make suggestions, why aren't they taking them? I mean, it's the same. This is only my second year, but I feel like a lot of things that we're recommending now, we recommended last year.
Right.
And so perfectly willing to use my own time and volunteer to do stuff, but it has to feel like it's worth it.
Yeah.
And it would also be helpful, like whatever recommend. So there's the board, right? So we do this annual report for the board. And then Jacob, you did a report with cabinet members, I think, because it has to be both. And so how does that get from board, cabinet to the actual schools? And I think that is the feedback that I've been thinking about. It's like it has to go back to our team and our schools to make those needed changes. And that might be the piece that's falling apart, is getting it back to to the schools.
Yeah, so something that it's not necessarily going to be a recommendation in the report because it's an overall recommendation, not for one section, and I'm going to include it in my report to the board next week. Largely, the main recommendation is going to be to request the board and the superintendent to put a process in place to specifically address our recommendations such that we receive feedback as far as how those recommendations are being responded to, right? I know that's not fully answering your question, Diane, or your concern, because I had the same observation and concern as you. Part of me wants to be like, okay, I understand the intent of the EASH plans and whatnot, but I'm not saying we need to go. I'm not saying we need to go back to the drawing board, but I do think we need to be like, okay, what are our expectations? Like, what are we hoping to see here? And we need to think about that.
Somebody mentioned it in here, the Bridgeport modified their each reporting thing to create a
Mhm.
table.
Mhm.
I think that really helped to clarify, and I think that's going to be a huge help for the schools to know what they need to put and where they need to put it, and exactly what information we're looking for.
Correct. Yes, that is the hope. Yeah, that we're going to try and recommend that we're going to recommend Bridgeport's as an example. But I think also, and Dan, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I think the thing there too is like, okay, cool, like Bridgeport's each plan looks great and whatnot, but again, still trying to be able to gather information from that each plan as far as what improvements are being made. Like, are you moving the needle, right? Such as, okay, yeah, you have listening sessions with parents and the community. Well, what are they saying? Include that information as well, right? Right. We just want to don't just tell us what you're doing. Tell us the results of what you're doing.
Yeah. And also, Dr. On, who couldn't be here tonight, she and I, who are the liaisons of this committee, then it's also the onus on us. We can take this information back to the school teams and to the directors who kind of supervise schools, school leaders. So we can, when we meet in a planning session, we can talk about like how do we take this information back to our leaders so that we can they see the recommendations and can either address them or say, here's why we didn't make a change, or here's where we can make a change.
Can I ask, is there some sort of script that the principals follow when they present their SIP plans to us and the board? Because one of the bullet points there could be, how did you address the concerns that were brought up from last year's?
That's a great question. And in my experience, Barb, unfortunately, the roundtables, the SIP roundtables, they don't generally even get to the each plan. They're focusing on all the other parts of it. They're focusing on the academics. They're focusing on everything else. They usually don't get to the each plan, which, yeah.
But I like that idea, Barb. I like those kind of those kind of questions that leaders can have in advance so that when they're preparing their presentation, it gives them time to reflect with their team so that they can bring it out. So I'm going to write that one down.
Yep.
And Jacob, since you said most of them don't get to that, maybe there should be an expectation discussion that all of the areas, including and especially the each plan, need to be part of your presentation. So
Yeah.
plan accordingly.
Yep, I agree with that, and especially now that EEAC members have been, basically given the green light to ask questions at these two, we can do that then too. We can be like, cool, so you've talked about this, tell me about your each plan, and really, put them on the spot. But I think trying to be more proactive though would be helpful, making sure that there is an expectation that they talk about their each plan. I'm just gonna scroll. I apologize. It's like I'm used to sharing my screen and stuff like through my regular job. I'm like, I got my second monitor over here, and I'm thinking that I'm sharing it, and I realize I'm not. So I'm like, just let me go up here. I'm gonna add that potentially as a recommendation to the each plan section. Having each plans specifically addressed at the roundtables. Second. Okay, cool. Misspellings, but whatever. All right. 7:55. All right. All right. Just again reading through the comments on the lessons learned. And I'm open to people just, if there's anything that you want to share, from one of your comments as far as a plus or delta. And one thing that I'll just say, I'm appreciative of Henry of stepping up and being the vice chair. Thank you, Henry. That's awesome. And I look forward to working with you more next year. Thank you, Diane. Awesome. I think I will say I think I had a couple up my sleeve in case. So I guess let me just put it out there. What did people think about doing some of these meetings like right now virtually? Yay, nay? Yay. Okay. I think that's a plus. I'm going to throw it in there.
I'm just going to say it's really hard for me as a mom with 3 children alone.
Understood.
It's dinner
Yep.
time. It's just, I'm always really distracted.
Yep.
You get more
Understood.
focused me when I'm not on virtual.
Understood, Lisa. I prefer them in person. I'll just be honest. I'm transparent with everybody. I do prefer them in person. But again, it's not all about me. And I do know that other people appreciate doing them virtually. And we still do get a lot of attendance and participation virtually. And so that's good enough for me. I want to do what works for lots of people. And so, yes, next year we will do some of them virtually as well. Obviously, like SROs, cabinet roundtables, like we're going to have to do some in person anyway. But yeah, we will continue to do some of them virtually. Yes, and Thor added in chat. I mean, we also can do hybrid. So again, if you would prefer to be virtual, you can do that, right? Sometimes we would have people show up virtually to our meetings in person. That only becomes a challenge if we do breakout sessions, right? Then that becomes a bit of a challenge. But yes, we can do a hybrid where people can still show up virtually when we're showing up in person. All right. And I think to piggyback on for one of the comments, I forget where it was about, documentation, like an onboarding process and documentation. Again, I totally agree. Something that Henry had mentioned and recommended that I think is a great idea that we can work on is like an FAQ document, right? Because when we go through reviews of like the bias incident and hate speech data, there's common questions, right? Like, what is a major incident? What's minor, right? And these are questions that get asked all the time. And so if there's a document that people can reference that has answers to those questions, that would be super helpful and could be included in that type of onboarding thing.
Oh, I have a suggestion just
Yeah.
now as we're doing this process is maybe for next year for the report, for the annual report, I think it is good to have us look at all components, but for soliciting feedback, maybe if we could assign 2 to 3 people per section so that it's focused.
Okay.
I think that might be helpful, and I think it would be easier for people to focus on just their section. But I don't know what people think about that.
Yeah. Well, what do people think? I mean, I am open to, I can commit to getting it done a little bit earlier too, so that people can do that. But yeah, what are people's thoughts on doing? Oh, and sorry, I also wanted to go back, I think, to a comment that just popped into my head about something that Diane said a little while ago about the TTSD emails and whatnot. Something that I can do is the EEAC distribution, like in the email that I use, and I just type in EEAC and it goes out to EEAC members. I manage that. We manage that. I can add personal emails to it. Okay, so I can send these emails so that they go to both your personal and your TTSD. So that way you'd be getting 2. Like, what, Diane, would that be a solution for you, or would that be too much? Because that's been a concern that other people have brought in the past as well, as far as the TTSD email goes.
It would definitely be a solution. I don't check my TTSD ones,
Right,
so
exactly.
if there are 100 in there, it doesn't bother me at all. But Thor messaged me privately, and I forgot. He reminded me that we can set up forwarding, and so I
Okay.
can also do that. So sorry for my little rant, but
No, that's fine.
I got now 2 solutions from it. So
Yeah.
I appreciate
No,
it.
that's a good
And then
call
the other
out.
was the calendar. It looks like he gave me a suggestion on that too that I just haven't read yet.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I actually didn't realize that about the forwarding, because
I totally forgot.
set it up and I get both on my phone and it's usually fine. But yeah, so if people are having concerns about that, forwarding the TTSD email to your personal mail is another option. Yeah, because I understand that Diane and other people have had the same concern in the past as well. But yeah, because if I can get the report done a little bit sooner, I mean, I did have it done I could probably do a week ahead of time. You know, I could probably get it a week before this meeting. It's probably about the earliest that I can get it done. And then assigning people sections again to hopefully read through and provide comments on, or, you know, even once we get to the meeting here, like again, we only have half an hour-ish, 40 minutes, assigning people to read sections and whatnot. We can try that as well.
Will it matter if the person was not there for that one? Do we have enough?
Yeah, so that's a good call out. Ideally, I think for like example, the cabinet roundtable. Yeah, ideally, I want the people who were at academics and at HR to be the ones reviewing that section. So we definitely want to try and do that. In other sections, that might not be quite as important.
So maybe a sign up then, because that means you would have to know that information.
True. I usually pay attention. I usually keep attendance.
Okay.
I know who shows up and who doesn't. So cool.
I'm also just thinking, because I know that you're doing a lot of work on the annual report throughout the year, and I know that, you know, we've had different sections that I could contribute to last year and this year. I couldn't, but I just am thinking about your predecessor and on how we can build capacity to pass on this role, because I know that you're working a lot of hours on these documents and setting things up. So I just, yeah, whatever you think about that, but
yeah.
Yeah,
I did think about that. One thing that I do plan on doing once this report is final, like before next year, is I am going to try and streamline the form. I'm going to create a version that for whoever comes after me, where I will like highlight sections and be like, this is the intro to the SRO section, and you give like you minorly have to change it each year because you're just explaining what the SRO program is. The next part, you just give a brief summary. Like I can create a version, a template that explains how to complete each section and have it be kind of standardized. That's my goal.
Jacob,
yes,
last year, did we have, say, the different teams to review the recommendations from EEAC? For example, did we, before the board report, did that go out to like SROs?
No.
So is that something that, because I'm still thinking about like each, like the climate and culture, how do we get that feedback to each of those folks that did the roundtable?
Right. Yeah. So again, that's going to be my overall recommendation when I present to the board next week. I'm going to give a highlight of all of our recommendations, and then my last one is going to be the most important one. Is we give all these recommendations, there needs to be a process put in place such as that these recommendations get to the appropriate people to respond and work on, and that a feedback loop is created to inform the committee on progress that's being made towards the.
And are you on, you're next week?
Next week, yes.
I'm just thinking like if, and I'm going to use climate and culture because that's Carol. I think I would probably want to know that feedback before it went to the board.
I see what you're saying. I mean, I guess what I would say is the feedback that we give is in good faith. We're not trying to catch anybody off guard or be punitive or anything. I don't think that we're giving feedback that people are going to see and be like, ooh, like, I can't believe they called me out like that. You know, trying to avoid that type of thing. I understand the concern though.
Yeah.
And that's something that we can talk with Zinnia about. Again, it comes down to timing of how soon can we get this done and get it out.
Yeah, I know. And I don't think we have a meeting on Do we have a meeting on Thursday?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Well,
Okay.
and I need to have this done and sent out by Wednesday in the
That's what
middle
I
of the day.
thought.
Yeah.
To no
Jade.
later
Yeah.
than Thursday morning.
No, Jade sent an email out, and it needs to be done by middle of the day, Wednesday. Yeah. Yep. So I'll be working on getting that done after this and tomorrow. So I guess with that being said, and we only have a few minutes left, I'm going to start working on incorporating feedback after this meeting. I know the document will be out here, but there's got to be a cutoff point. So like after this meeting, I need to work on this and get it done. So comment period is closed after this meeting. And again, I will do my best. I'm not perfect, but I will do my best to incorporate people's feedback. All right, so last item then, tentative plans for next school year. The goal is to have the same number of meetings, 9, and I will work on the dates once the school board has their dates. So once the school board has their meetings for the years, then I'll go in and look at the calendar and be like, okay, we're going to do this, and this date, and then try and get that out to people as soon as possible. I do need to get an idea of who will be continuing on the committee next year, so that Henry and I and Zinnia and Dr. McCall, that we know how many people that we need to recruit. So I am going to, ask people on the call, like, hey, do you plan on being on the committee next year? If you don't feel like you can commit to it, again, I get this is a fairly large commitment, and several of you have been doing this, multiple years. So if it's time to step down, step away, no judgment, completely understand. Again, I'm just trying to get an idea of how many people we need to recruit for next year. And if you do say no, and then you change your mind, no problem. We'll welcome you back with open arms. With that being said, I'll start with the people who have external email addresses. Because you should have gotten an email from Kathy Beck about keeping your TTSD email account active. So if you intend to continue on next year, I can send that request to Jade to ensure it keeps active. So with that being said, who do I have on my list? So Marissa, you're one of the people that has an external email. Do you plan on continuing next year?
Yep, I sure do.
Awesome. Thank you. Where are my notes? Where are my notes? Let me go back to my notes. Okay. And how about Diane?
Yes.
Cool. Thank you.
Are there term limits?
So originally we said 2 years as a term limit. With that being said, like I've been out here for more than 2 years. Henry's been here for more than 2. So we're not going to say, your 2 years are up, you need to get out. Yeah. So I'll say that. The 2 years is just like if you're going to join the committee, we request that you be here for 2 years, because 1 year is just enough to get your feet wet. All right. Henry.
Yes, I intend to come back next year.
Awesome. Thank you, Henry. And then who else? Lisa?
Yes, I intend to come back.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. Cool. And I think I'm looking, those are all the external people on the call. So for the 4 of you, if you haven't done so, don't worry. I can send Jade an email asking her to keep your accounts active over the summer. So I will do that for the 4 of you. You don't have to worry about that. All right, for everybody else, Nina, do you plan on continuing?
I think it's my time to pass the baton to someone else.
All right.
It has been lovely and I learned so much, but I think it would be a benefit for the group to get a staff perspective that is fresher than mine. And I'm happy to stay on until recruitment feels final and also help train the next person. I think there is a benefit to me sitting in on meetings with someone side by side and reviewing data with them and helping helping them understand the protocols. But if that's not necessary, feel free not to ask me back. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. So
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Nina. You've been awesome. I really appreciate all your partnership over the last several years. Cool. All right. How about Barb?
Yes, I plan to be back.
Awesome. Thank you, Barb. Barb's a yes. Moss. Are you on, Moss? Yes.
Hi, yeah, sorry, my camera isn't working for some reason, but yes, I would love to be here for my third and final year.
Awesome. Thank you, Moss. Italy.
I would like to come back. This past time has been a little difficult because it's very new, but I'm really excited for next year.
Awesome. Glad to have you, Italy. Cool. I think that's everybody. I'm looking at the list. Yes, that is everybody. So cool. That helps me out a lot. I appreciate that. Let's see, what else did I have before we close out? Yeah, I don't need to go over that part because everybody is going to continue. Yeah, so I guess what I would say is I will be giving a presentation to the board next week in person. EEAC members are invited to show up. So, I mean, if you want to be present so you can see the presentation to the board of our work, you can show up. You can watch it virtually. And I guess I would like to ask Henry, do you plan on being there? I mean, you don't have to if you have other commitments, but I would like for you to be there if you could.
I can be there.
You can be there? Awesome.
Mhm.
Cool. Great. Yeah, so awesome. Henry will be there with me then.
What day and time is that?
Oh, good call out. So, Dr. McCall, are you
So
still on?
typically, so this will probably be one of our shortest board meetings. We start at 6:30, so then there's the board minutes and all of that. So like 6:45 at the latest, I would say. But I think though, I didn't see the agenda yet, but I think your presentation will be by 7:30.
Yeah, I would say that sounds about right. Between 6:45 and 7:30 is probably when we will be presenting.
Yeah.
What day is that?
Yeah.
Next Monday.
Monday.
Oh, Monday. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
And it's at the training center where we have our meetings. Awesome. Well, yeah, so this is our last meeting of the school year then. And thank you everybody for those who committed, and thank you, Nina, for the time that you've given us over the years. I appreciate you all. And again, I will work on incorporating everybody's feedback as much as possible over the next day. And yeah, thank you very much, everybody. I hope you all have a great summer, and I will see many of you next year. Thank you.
Thank you.